Alright, this is Dave, and I get a break today. I'm not in a cage. I'm actually at a local transmission shop. We have our CVT that we did a first little clip on how to ID what a CVT is. And now, I'm very fortunate. I may not even have to get dirty, because I got some friends here that are going to peel this unit. And again, basically what we're going to do is just separate it, check out the parts in it, talk about it a little bit as we go. So stay tuned, have fun. Peel it out. What we're peeling out is the sensors, and I'm glad he did this and not me. He broke my thing. No, actually when cores, this is kind of the stuff you get. You'll notice a broken connector here. It's just how it was, it's a core. But all the pieces inside should be good. There's a sensor here. There's a sensor in the back, right here, and then there's a sensor here. So this one has 3 sensors in it. In the video as we go through, we'll be mentioning part numbers and stuff. That's all right. We love shop noise. That makes it sound real. So you keep doing what you got to do. Take them out. Now, if this don't tell you something, these things are metal creators. They put 3 magnets in this pan. Now, this is one of the fun parts about a new unit. You just keep taking a bolt out at a time until you start getting the wiggle. There's a lot of information, but not necessarily exactly how to do it. This is just a valve body, electrical, and a broken connector. So be careful with them when you're taking them apart. And another thing, never really run your finger across the pins of them. But if you do, stand on carpet and do this, and then rub your fingers. They love that. All right. Now, one of the things I just pulled off on the side here is what I like call an inline filter. It's not the main sump filter. It sits in the pan. But actually, it's an inline filter. If you get one of these, any CVT that has any kind of a transmission temp code or anything, if you pull this out and it looks clean, change it. They clog really fast and they don't show signs. If you pull one out and it's full of metal, the training's done. So if you pull it apart and it's still somewhat clean, if you go ahead and change that usually, not always, but usually will take care of the tranny temp code. Transtar carries these, so we have them readily available, but this is one of the first things you do. Again, if you pull it out and it's loaded with metal, just stop because it's done. Now, what we just lifted off here is basically the main CVT. It's got the belt and pulleys. And again, in my first video, as I showed, you could see this one's real wide, real narrow. As you go down the road, this one will start closing. This one will start opening, and it's just a continuous variation of the pulleys going up and down, which gives you your speeds. Again, this is the main chunk of it. When you look, this is a really cherry unit. Actually, it looks kind of brand new. When these pulleys here, when you look at the face of them, if they got scar marks, slip marks, if the belt looks like it got hot, you can buy all the pieces, components, but sometimes it's better just already bought it rebuilt. So we'll keep tearing it down. We'll get back to this. We want to separate the rest of it. Again, when you're splitting cases and stuff, one of the things you gotta watch out for is little O-rings that'll lay in some of the pockets that are a sealing area. Again, on any new unit, it's kind of tricky, but you gotta watch because this will stick to the part you're pulling off. And if you don't realize it and it falls off, now you go back together, you're gonna have a problem. But usually it only happens once.
Got another one right here.
And we got another one right there. They're tube seals. And even though it's just a little piece and it's cheap, it'll wreak havoc on your life. So this is a builder's nightmare on some new units that you don't have a lot of information.
Got a typical lock-up O-ring.
Just a bell housing, a shroud, feed pipe, couple bearings, just like case half on a Honda. Okay, this is the other side of it, opposite variators. Chain drive pump that goes to the remote pump, a diff, transfer gear. Again, these units compared to a step transmission or a 6-speed, 8-speed, 9-speed, 10-speeds, there's not much to these. They're pretty simple. If you think about a snowmobile, that's what we're working on. Again, this is remote pumps, chain drive pumps becoming more common in a lot of different units. One of the reasons is it's a little less drag on the engine. They're different pumps. They're not constant flow. They're like a 700 rotor type. So having this type of thing, it's, again, saves a teaspoon of gas in a year, which all adds up over the years. And that's my take on it. We now have bushing kits for these also. There's a stator bushing, little input, kind of a simple thing. The ring gear spines into the clutch drum. Again, you gotta have a couple clutches, one to apply for forward, one to apply for reverse because you got to kick it backwards. And some of them actually now have another clutch set in to make it like a 2-speed. So it has a high and low range. Again, one of the drawbacks to these of people buying them is they don't shift. Everybody's used to a transmission shifting. You get one of these, it just goes faster and slower and RPMs stay somewhat consistent. So what they're trying to do to make it more appealing to people is actually put a shift, a stumble, a skip in it to make it more like a step transmission, more what people are used to having. Again, just simple clutch packs, no big deal. Clutch drum, gonna have bonded piston and retainer in there. Again, the ring gear sits in, splines to this. When you're tearing these down, you gotta kind of watch. This is a sensor wheel, or a reluctor if you want to call it, for one of the speed sensors. And if you drop it and ding it, that can get you all kinds of codes and stuff. So when you take it, this is one of the pieces you want to be real nice with. Just to plan it. Now them's some little dudes.
Oh, yeah.
These are some pretty small. Yeah, I could see these taking a thing. And again, you always wonder what happens to beer cans and soup cans. Well, you're finding it more and more in transmissions. Again, this is a Planet. Kind of skimpy, but it gets the job done. Ring gear and a hub for the clutch drum. The second set of clutches in there. And again, it don't take much. It only has to hold a little bit. There's only a couple frictions in this one. It's not a 6, 7, 10 stack up. It's just a couple simple frictions. Spring set, and that's it. This is the pump out of it. This is all it is. To make the extreme pressures, and by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but on a CVT, if you're going to hook a gauge on it to check pressures, don't use a typical gauge. Use 200 to 300 pounder, because these things will run 170 to 225 psi. So if you put a 30 or an 80 gauge on it, needless to say, that dial's going to spin, it's going to blow the top off, and you're going to have a hose blowing oil all over your customer's car. So again, use the proper tools when you're doing it, but this is the little dude that creates all the pressure. This is the little housing it fits in. And these are somewhat pressed together, and if you take it out, it's just a vane type pump, very similar to what a 700, other common units that are using this type, and again, it's just a remote pump. Really somewhat sturdy and reliable. We don't change that many of them, but again, time will tell, as with most stuff. Again, there's one more spring set inside there, but this is a gutted transmission now. And if you've seen or you look in catalogs at step transmissions with all the clutch drums, sprags, all that, this is relatively a simple unit to do. There's just not much to it. Again, the problem used to be parts. We're getting that covered really well. We're saturating it. We're getting a lot of info, and stuff's becoming more readily available. So again, it's a simple type unit.